my friends. Welcome back to this interview series of movement professionals and on our healing journeys. With me, Dr. Justine Bernard, owner of Elements Fitness and Wellness Center in Washington, D.C. And in this series, I strive to honor the fullness of our stories in hopes that we feel open and courageous in sharing these vulnerable moments, as this is our strength, and also to just in this sharing, inspire and deepen the understanding for both clients and instructors who may be on similar journeys. So this next series, we're covering autoimmune journeys, such as lupus and RA. And today I get to interview Chantal Debo. And I am condensing her bio a little bit today because she's such an amazing person with so many years of experience, and I hold her deep in my heart. And so you can see her full bio on her New York City studio is kinspirit.com, and the Portland studio is kinspiritcircle.com. So Chantal has been a lover of movement her whole life, and she was born and raised in Canada. She made her way to New York City because of a scholarship to study at the Cunningham Studio and a grant to study at the Lamone Institute. She went on to dance professionally with many different companies, including the very physical Elizabeth Streb Extreme Action Dance Company. And she studied Pilates and the Gyrotonic method for many years, from the late 80s, early 90s. And she is a master trainer in both, and just extremely experienced instructor. She started her business journey in 2003 and just never stopped. She keeps expanding. She opened Kinspirit Studios in 2006 in New York City. And now she has 2 locations, as I mentioned, New York City and Portland. And she teaches pretty much every continuing ed course in the gyrotonic educational course system, including gyrokinesis final certifications. And she's co-created the gyrotonic application course for runners. So she is an endless resource of movement knowledge, and I highly recommend you check her out. So today she is joining us, courageously sharing her journey with rheumatoid arthritis. So rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune inflammatory condition in which our immune systems, our amazing immune systems, which create antibodies for bacteria and viruses and all these things, is also creating antibodies for healthy cells that affect the lining of our joints. So this can cause pain, achiness, swelling, often in the hands, the wrists, and the knees, but it could affect other joints as well. And these symptoms can be at rest or with movement. It can also affect other tissues, other healthy tissues, and create fatigue, low-grade fevers, loss of appetite. These are some of the symptoms. So I mainly point this out that this is different than our well-known osteoarthritis, which can affect maybe one joint and through wear and tear. This is more of a systemic autoimmune condition. So enough on that. You can learn a lot more about it, but we're here today to hear Chantal's journey and experience so far. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump into our first question, which is to ask Chantal to please share your journey, kind of when it started, how long have you been on this journey? What were those, looking back now, what were some of those initial symptoms, experiences that started you down this path of healing and treatment?
Thank you for that amazing introduction, Justine. Very, very humbling. I'm so thrilled to be here, but I'm strangely a little bit nervous. I think I'm also a little emotional about like kind of wandering down this journey again. But here we are, and I'm also like, I'm honored. So thank you for asking me. It was the spring of 2018, and so we're little past 4 full years in now, and but the initial onset was and so it's a little muddy, but the spring of 2018 I started actually having kind of a cascade effect of things happen, and I'm not going to bore you with all of the minutia of those things, but I was significant in that is that with my movement background and my relationship with my body all of my life, I didn't, my body's always recovered really quickly. I worked, like you said, I worked with an extreme action dance company, had pretty severe injuries that I just, two things that were my custom. I'd keep pushing, working through pain, and my body would always get better. And so that was my relationship and my kind of understanding of how my body functioned. And 2018, things started happening, and I had that same attitude. And it's a little, it's a long time I've had this relationship with my body, so it's almost a bit of an arrogant attitude I had, right? Like, I'll just push through this and my body will get better. And that didn't happen. It didn't get better. And like I said, a cascade of a few things happened, but cut to July of 2018, one day to the next, I woke up with a swollen left knee. Now, as you just mentioned, RA typically presents, and I didn't know this at the time, but RA typically presents starting in the hands and the feet, the smaller joints of the body, and with some kind of symmetry is the typical presentation of it. So when I went to, I first visited a PT for the swollen knee. Nobody could help me, so I finally ended up with a knee specialist in New York, and we basically functioned for the next year and 3 months on the assumption that what I had was a mechanical injury, not a systemic problem. So I went through processes of taking, anti-inflammatories and NSAIDs, and then I had cortisone shots in my knee. The cortisone shots helped, but they were a Band-Aid that they kind of run through their course in about 3 months. So 3 months later, kind of like clockwork, my knee would swell up again. And I did the cortisone shot 3 times. He only wanted to do it twice, but I actually convinced him to do it a 3rd time because, I couldn't function without it. And I also kept thinking that I had figured out something else that I had been doing wrong and that I wouldn't do wrong this time, kind of thing. Anyway, finally he said, I'm at a loss here. I don't know, you don't present like somebody with RA or lupus or there's a number of things, gout, there's a number of things that it could have been. And he said, please just go and have a workup done with your doctor, and let's at least start ruling things out, process of elimination, since I can't figure out, what's going on. So I went, and rheumatoid factor was in my blood. I went to see a rheumatologist, and within 3 months, so it wasn't like an immediate diagnosis because I was presenting so atypically. But it took three visits, and it was about 3 months later when she said, and I mean, virtually a quote, what she said was, I'm going to go ahead and diagnose you with rheumatoid arthritis. I still only had the swelling in the left knee, but it had been 1 year and 3 months by this time. I went into it with a really strong body. So the compensations that were happening I was still okay, but it was, I wasn't functioning anywhere near, normal, let's say that. That day that she diagnosed me, she gave me some information, some literature to read up on 2 drugs, Plaquenil and methotrexate. Plaquenil is basically hydroxychloroquine, which, thanks to somebody, we all know what that is. And that was originally a drug that was intended to treat malaria. And then methotrexate is a microdose of chemotherapy. So you can imagine that I was kind of terrified of both of these drugs. And also, just to sort of give a little bit of foundation for people who don't know me, I just don't take medications. Like I have a daughter, she's 15 now, but I gave birth without any sort of pain intervention, totally natural childbirth. If I have a headache, I'd rather go through the pain of the headache and let it pass than take an aspirin. It's just like how, and that's a whole other conversation, right? What's that all about? But that's not part of this conversation necessarily. So all that to say, I just, the context, that's the context of like me putting these kinds of drugs in my body. It just didn't compute. And I said to her, are you expecting me to decide and you to give me a prescription me start on this today. And she said, yeah, as a matter of fact, you should have started a long time ago. Like, and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I need to investigate other ways. And that started me down the journey of trying to figure out holistic ways and natural approaches to try and allow, my belief was my body, including my immune system, has served me so well for so long. It's been my ally, it's been my everything, it's been my mode of expression, it's been my job, it's been my, identity. And I just couldn't believe, the autoimmune definition is your body turning on itself. And it's just like, I can't believe that. I have to believe that if I provide my body an environment, like the ideal environment, again, somehow the environment got disrupted and my body had its reaction. But if I can recreate an ideal environment, my body will heal. And that was what I was, that was what my thought process was. And that's what I was sticking with. So that was in October of 2019, my diagnosis. And then, of course, March of 2020, pandemic hit. So I worked with a naturopath between October 2019 and March 2020, which at least meant that I was on some kind of path, but I did stop working with him in March of 2020. I, at that point, was working with supplementation, food, like modifying food intakes, like basically my diet completely changed over the course of, the time of finding out, and, eliminating gluten and soy and dairy and nightshades, and, the list goes on. And with each intervention, and then of course, people who I also wasn't really sharing this widely at first, but the people who I did share it with, I'd often get responses with, check this out, check this out, check this out. So I was kind of getting lots and lots of information, and I was trying a lot of different things. And in terms of the natural and holistic, trying to manage symptoms. And each time, and who knows if it's placebo, who knows if the body does respond initially to slight modifications, but each time I would try something, I'd have a period of maybe a week or 2 weeks where I would feel better, my symptoms would feel better. And, but at this point now, if I look back over what became a 2-year time frame since diagnosis, actually closer to 4-year time frame from the actual onset of initial symptoms. But basically, I was in a constant gradual decline. But that mindset that I just mentioned that I had when she offered me these 2 drugs, that mindset just got more and more and more firmly entrenched in me somehow. And I feel at this point like I lost sight of what that initial idea was, and I lost perspective because, and here's where the tears might come. This is what I was worried about, but because I got to a really, really dark place. I got to my symptoms declined in the last 6 months to a year. Well, no, the last 6 months has been better, but like the 6 months before I finally went for treatment, Western allopathic treatment, the 6 months to a year before that, my second knee, so it was always my left knee that was, was swollen since July of 2018. In December of 2020, my right knee started to have the same symptoms, which was terrifying because my right knee was doing everything that my left knee couldn't. And so, and then I was having symptoms, it started to travel. I had shoulder, neck, thumbs, digits, toes. But, I could only go up and downstairs, upstairs, of course, forwards, but I could only go downstairs backwards. I couldn't walk downstairs forward. And of course, anything that involved weight bearing was excruciating. So standing and sitting, going to the bathroom, making food, and anything. So I got to a point where I was in so much pain just existing. Like at first it was painful when I would be weight bearing and moving or whatever, but it got to the point where I was in pain, even if I was sitting or lying down. So I kind of moved into our, what we call our study bedroom in our home. And I started, that's when I say I got to a dark place. I was hermiting myself away. I didn't want to see people. And I was even kind of disconnecting from my family a little bit also because, and this might be part of another topic that we talk about, but as much as the physical aspect, you know, is challenging, what starts to happen mentally is crazy. But anyway, so I got to the point where I was hermiting myself away and everything was excruciating. And I was kind of feeling in despair and losing hope and not really being able to envision how I could even get better. And finally, it was almost like an intervention. I had a couple of friends say to me, like, "What, you've done everything you can. Like, why are you punishing yourself?" They're like, "It's like you're punishing yourself. Like, there are medications that can help you live a virtually normal existence. Why are you so against this?" And it was like something finally cracked open, and I was like, my steadfastness to find a natural solution, a way to manage these symptoms naturally, was the whole essence of that idea in the first place, was to maintain quality of life. The idea that these drugs could eventually deteriorate my body and be harmful to my body could eventually decrease my quality of life, right? But my quality of life within those 2 years had decreased to the point where I was hermiting myself away in a room, away from even my family. Like, it's like, oh, oh yes, perspective, thank you. So I went to the rheumatologist, and it was kind of mind-blowing because, like I said, my state of mind, let alone my physicality, my state of mind was that I was so far gone. You know, I couldn't even imagine getting better anymore. And he didn't even have a moment of doubt. He's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to get you out of pain. We're going to go through the process. Might be a process of elimination, but we have medications to deal with, you know." And he just was like completely matter of fact. And with that, like, not, you know, that thing where a doctor can't promise anything. He wasn't promising, but he was very confident. Like, "You're going to be better." And within 24 hours, you know, so I was immediately put on prednisone because he could see that I was in excruciating pain. And he put me on prednisone, and we waited. I had a full workup, x-rays, blood work, everything, which we were waiting for the results of that before he actually put me on the medication that, you know, would be the long-term medication. But the prednisone was the immediate. And within 24 hours, I would say I was at least 50% less in pain. Within 1 week, I was not walking on a cane anymore. I probably didn't mention this, but yes, for the last 3 or 4 months before I went to the doctor, I needed to walk with a cane. And so within a week, I didn't need to walk with a cane anymore. And I mean, at the landmark, I could list off the landmarks. The landmarks are nothing short of miraculous. Like, it's kind of mind boggling, you know. And I choke up because it's like, first of all, I'm so grateful. Second of all, I'm like, what the hell took me so long? But yeah, so that was November of that last year. I started on the medication, and probably about a month later, I started to feel like, I might be able to teach again. I might be able to, you know, like I said, I had lost confidence, I had lost hope, I had lost all this, and I just, like, the lights started to flicker, and you know, and as you know, I came to your studio in, was that March? That was March, right? I came to your studio in March and took a course, and that was a kind of a test for me. Travel, physicality, like that, you know, that level of physicality, and I passed the test. It went really well. My body held up, and I taught a course. I taught a foundation course in March, and that was also felt like really transitional. And it also was brilliant and beautiful, and an opportunity for me to experience again, kind of like a revisiting of how I felt when I first started teaching, you know, like, oh yeah, I really do love this. So I'm still, I wouldn't say, it's like we're having this conversation and I want to be kind of clear that I'm talking about what's happened to me so far, but I'm nowhere near done. Like physically, I've like I said, it's miraculous what's happened in 6 months. But I wouldn't say that I'm having like a retrospective looking back moment. I still have a long way to go. So in that way, there's a lot of this conversation that is, sorry, that is going to feel raw.
Yeah. Wow. So you brought up a lot of amazing, not only what you've been through thus far, but just so many mindsets that I think a lot of movement instructors go through, that pushing through pain is kind of okay or even honored. That's one thing that kind of is a mind shift that we have to kind of go through as movement professionals. And also that we identify so much with our abilities and our bodies that when something happens, we just want to crawl into a cave and be a hermit and not, and that can be, it's something as big as what you went through, but also as little as, a shoulder injury. It can be on many spectrums. So you've brought up so many points. And then also in our world, we also identify as natural as being also somehow honored. And it does have a role, it does have a place. And you brilliantly looked out every option for healing. I mean, just knowing you, like you've tried many healing journeys. And that's incredible. And you still have that, and you still have all of those things to lean on, but that you also went and got help from a rheumatologist who's studied this for many, many, many years and been able to make that combination. So,
we know movement heals, right? But if you break your arm, you get a cast, like you're not gonna, if you're smart, you're not gonna put the cast on yourself.
Right.
It's like, I don't know where I lost that perspective, but you're right. It was almost like a badge of honor. If I could, like I said, provide myself, my body, the environment to heal in, even the language, you hear the language and how,
yeah.
It's like it was somehow a badge of honor, and that I was a failure if I didn't do that. Like that's like how, like the thought process that I carved for myself. Nobody else did it to me. I did it to myself. But I mean, we have the input from around us, and that could be a whole other conversation. But yeah, we know that movement like heals, but it heals. First of all, it's hugely preventative, right? If we adopt movement as a daily part of our healthy lifestyle, we know that all of our systems are moving, are functioning and communicating in harmony, and it can be hugely preventative. But if something acute comes along, you don't jump on the gyro tower or jump on your treadmill or your Peloton to fix, like I said, a broken arm or a dislocated shoulder, or and that's where, one of the things that I said, there was a kind of an intervention that happened. One of my friends reminded me of that story, and I think maybe I've told you this before. People might have heard this story about, a person who was, I don't know, caught in a flood, and he, was on the ground level, and the flood got higher, and he went to the next level. He ended up on the roof, and anybody who would come and try and help him, a boat going by, a helicopter coming by, whatever, he'd say, "No, I don't need your help. God will save me." And then, when he finally didn't, he said in past, and he said, "God, why didn't you save me?" And I was like, "I sent the boat, I sent the helicopter, why didn't you take the help?" And Western medicine is miraculous, and we can we're not failures if we take the help. And believe me, like I got vaxxed. I got like, I don't, this is the only time that I've ever like somehow, like I said, it just became like a mission somehow for me to, yeah, anyway, that thought process is gone, but
yeah, I mean, we're told in some circumstances, I mean, all of this chatter is learned, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, there is a holding on to hope that I can heal myself.
Yeah.
And I just need to get that environment, whether it's food or my mentality or and that can take us to a certain point. I mean, the fact that you were so physical and so physically fit, you did, I mean, it could be a blessing and a curse, but you did so well with this diagnosis because you were so physically fit.
Yeah, the first naturopath I worked with said, I was still in that phase of really entrenched with what did I do wrong that made this happen? And he kept trying to get that change that thought pattern. And he was like, you know, plenty of people who are going to get this disease, get it in their late 20s, early 30s, whatever. He said, maybe your lifestyle prevented you from getting it for 20 years. We don't know. There's no way to know, but you can't blame yourself for getting this disease, you know. That was the other thing that, you know, another friend said to me, you're acting as though it's your fault that you got this. You're acting like you're self-punishing. And, you know, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want it to sound harsh at all, but it was the language she used to get through to me. She was like, if you were diagnosed with cancer, would you feel the same? Would you be acting the same way? You know, no, you would be accepting the help, you know? And again, I'm sorry. Hey, they go crazy whenever they hear it. No. So yeah, and I also want to, that sort of reminds me of something that, you know, this is sharing my journey. I still get emotional and everything, but there is also part of me, and you mentioned it before, in one direction, you said it could be a journey like yours, or it could be an injured shoulder. I also, all the way along, you know, there's also this recognition that there are so many people who deal with so much, you know, such, you know, more challenging circumstances than the circumstance that I've been dealt. And I just feel like it's important to acknowledge that, and that our journeys, you know, and that the other aspect of this, and I don't want to, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Please stop. But everybody has the journey and the path that they travel, and I don't want to be misunderstood for a second. There's no part of me that is, you know, thankful for having RA, but a lot of the process that I've been going through has been a journey of discovery, whether it's a different modality or a different way of trying to help, but also a journey of self-discovery, and for me, an exploration, a deeper exploration of my spirituality, and, you know, the whole notions of inner nature. And, you know, you mentioned that aspect of pushing through pain, and it relates a lot to a lot of the work that I'm looking at in terms of my inner work is about so at first it was kind of painful, because the way that I feel like I would push myself or treat myself, and have expectations of myself. And I know that so many people can relate to this. We all do the same thing. But like if I imagined doing that to somebody else, it would be called neglect. or even abuse. And I mean, I would lie at night crying over that when I first finally like said those words to myself, like, and then going through the journey of like, my self-worth was, and I say was, but I want to emphasize again that I'm still right smack in the middle of this journey. So it's not that I feel like I'm past it at all, but my self-worth was so entrenched in what I do and how I present in the world, and honestly, my physicality, like my physical ability is what and I the only way that I know that for so sure is because of what it did to me to lose my physicality. Like, it just did a number on my head, and I lost confidence, and I had to work through feelings of self-worth, like, what am I here for if I'm not here? Like, if I can't move, what am I here for? Like, I just, and it does feel pretty amazing to, to get to a point where I do understand that I have value and I'm worthy, whether or not I have that level, that capacity of physicality, that, way beyond that, I'm worthy, and just by virtue of taking a breath, just by virtue of being alive and existing, I'm worthy, and we all are. For me, for some reason, it took this kind of an extreme journey for me to delve into the depths of that kind of inner work. I thought that I was whatever the word is. I thought that I was together, and I thought I had it figured out. I thought that I was okay. But my body put on the brakes screechingly, like halted me, and was like, "You need to figure this out. Like, you need to dive into this work and figure this out." And for that, I'm grateful. This, like I said, there's no part of me that wants me to have RA, and there's no part of me that wishes that anybody else goes through a life-altering, disrupting, challenging, whatever thing to get to a point where you discover your inherent self-worth. But if you have to go through something, it's good if there are some really positive side effects or gifts that come out of it.
So I'm getting feedback, sorry. I want to read a quote from your bio. And anyways, so you say, "Movement is joy, movement is life. My passion is to help people find their joy in movement. My greatest joy is witnessing people live as their fullest selves." And what I find so amazing is that movement, we identify, especially as gyrotonic instructors, as movement is our life and movement is our joy. And sometimes we equate that with extreme movement, extreme ranges, that kind of performance piece that sometimes gyrotonic can get to. But I just want to celebrate for a moment. I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but every now and then you would text me with an amazing movement accomplishment. And that joy and that essence of what that quote is was so felt to me through these texts that might have been like, I walked upstairs, or I
straightened my leg.
Yeah.
Justine, I straightened my leg today.
I did a few prances, these amazing, and that I just want to celebrate you and honor you in that sense that you reminded me of that joy of being able to straighten your leg. Like, gyrotonic is about so much more than the extreme. It's about being able to straighten your leg, and any movement, not just gyrotonic, but movement in general.
And honor when you can't straighten your leg too. Remember I said that to you once? I was like, oh my God, all this time I've been doing gyrotonic as though it was a dance performance. Now I feel like gyrotonic, and pretty much any movement I do, my and I'm not always successful at this, but my task is to listen to my body every moment. So hard. It's so hard because it's, especially like I said, the background I had was, I don't listen to my body, it listens to me. Like I tell it what to do, and it always responds. And I mean, I'm so grateful to this amazing body that did respond for so long. It served me so well for so long, and it is still serving me well, but I feel the relationship is reversed. It gets to guide me now. I'm my mandate, and like I said, I'm not always successful, but I try to listen to my body every time I climb on my Peloton, every time I go for a walk, every time I get on the gyro tower. You know, it's like, if I'm walking, because I'll find myself doing the same, you know, like what I have been accustomed to for so long. You know, when I first started walking, so I walk every day for it's like 2.15 miles. It's a loop on a reservation nearby. So it's outside and in nature, which is key also. And it's one of the main things that has been part of my rehabilitation since you know, getting better. And when I first would walk, I literally was just grateful for every step, because I had been on a cane, and I had been for so long, every single step was painful. So I'd take a step and it wouldn't hurt. I'd take a step and it wouldn't hurt. I'd just be like, you know, and then of course you get used to that. And, you know, and then now I can, you know, walk and think about it. Also, I'd have to walk and pay attention to every step, right? It's like learning to walk again. Now I can walk and have my mind, my thoughts kind of going elsewhere again. And then I'll notice, you know, oh, my knee is I've got a little, you know, zing or ping or whatever in my knee. And there's some days there's that tendency to be like, oh, forget it, just push through it, and be like, no. And I'll stop, and people will pass me, which before I would hate it. I hate it when people pass me, you know? and now I'm like, go ahead, you can walk faster. I want to walk slower. But I'll stop and I'll do some knee circles, or I'll, you know, rub my knee, or I'll just weight shift, or, you know, do some standing figure eights or something, until I feel like that thing, that ping, that zing, you know, has, even if it doesn't 100% go away, it feels paid attention to, you know? And it's just so important to me now to have that as my mandate for as a mover now. And I can't, I'm just like I said, venturing back into offering educational courses and teaching courses and stuff, but I can't, there's a, you know, it's impossible that won't feed into how I teach now, you know. But it's we talked about that whole performative aspect. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah. So kind of like I mentioned, we all have a deeper journey that we're going through. They're all different on the spectrum, but they're not even worth comparing, because one's journey is one's journey, and comparison can take you away from that journey. But I just, in my own journey, which is a whole different subject, that what you talked about, instead of the mind kind of pushing the body always, there's this development of trust between the mind and body. And it's really takes a rewiring to find that, when we're constantly thinking of, to be a professional athlete and to be a dancer and a performer, sometimes you do have to kind of have this discipline that powers you through. And sometimes we lose that trust of our mind and body, and our body and our mind. And then with outside influences, you know, how do you incorporate advice of an expert in different fields without losing your own internal voice? So anyways, you just put it so beautifully, of kind of paying attention and allowing the body to talk, to guide us as well as the mind, and that balance. So incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, we have this like this tendency to want to override, and and there's a time and place, you know, drive, and, you know, that served me well until it didn't. And I think that's true for a lot of people. So I'm not saying that there isn't a time and place for that, but it's a lot like what we just said with, movement heals in a broken arm. It's like just knowing, when. And I think that it depends on what your movement practice is for. Like you said, for a professional athlete or for a dancer who's, their body will be their instrument of expression on stage. The goal there is different than for a lot of our other clients, and for ourselves also. And I think for me personally, my transition from dance into having a career as a movement educator, first of all, I didn't plan it. It just it had its own energy and its own trajectory that I willingly and excitedly and passionately followed. But I didn't decide to stop dancing. It just kind of happened. And the way that I functioned as a dancer and as a person, in relation with my body as a dancer and a performer, that just traveled into my world as a movement educator, because I didn't make any distinction or differentiation or decision about that. And if I look back, honestly, a little while before all of this happened, physically, mentally, I was having some struggles about questions about, well, that's, I guess I don't want to tangent off too far into that world, but I was questioning, like, if I'm not dancing anymore, like, what is this? And I think it's an interesting question for us all to spend some time with, because movement doesn't have to be in that realm all the time, and there's so many of us in this world who are coming from dance as a background, and it would be, I think, an interesting thing to check in with ourselves about, like, how much of this is performative and how much of this is left over from that headspace, and how much can we open ourselves to excuse me, having a different relationship with movement, and how we experience it ourselves, and how we invite our clients or our students to explore and experience it. What is the perfectionism of, sometimes there's this, anyway.
Yeah. We can go on and on and on. And yeah, I didn't want to undervalue how much discipline and drive it takes for you to get where you are right now. The amount of discipline and drive, and to seek out all these different healing methods, and to get up every day and get out to your walk. And it's incredible. And after the life of the dancer, I don't, and I imagine lots of us don't, I don't put a lot of value on that. I immediately jumped, when you said that, I immediately jumped to you talking, you must be referring to my life as a dancer. It didn't for a second occur to me that you were talking about this journey right now. And then you said that. And, I have a woman who I work with. She's kind of a combination of, helps me with the inner work that I talked about, but also somewhat, business mentor and whatever. But she said something similar. She's like, Chantal, you need to take, like, let's just celebrate that you just keep going. Like you, and she calls it, she's like, you kind of went through like a shamanic death, and which I still am like trying to read up on, and but you just keep going, and in my head I'm like, what choice do I have? Like, but it's interesting. Like I said, I didn't, when you said that, all I heard was in relation to my dance career, not to this journey. So it's like, even now I'm still not seeing that, but thank you. Well, I had a list of questions, but I think you really went through all of it. And more fabulousness.
Blah, 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 blah.
I think I do want to leave with one more. I want to also mention one more quote that you put on your bio, because I think it's fascinating that these are the quotes we kind of put out there in the universe, and then our lives may shift dramatically, and yet this is still in our mindset. So you put there that I believe a movement practice is essential to balanced life. A practice takes discipline. It's something you visit over and over again, but it can also be playful, fierce, and fun. Like a good friend, you can come to rely on your practice, look forward to it, and miss it when it's not there.
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. I said that.
So you've been through that on every aspect of missing it when it wasn't there, and the discipline it takes you, even though you thought I was talking about your dance career, I'm talking about you right now, every day, doing your movement and choosing not to do it. That's a huge part of discipline too, right? The discipline to be like, okay, mind, calm down. I'm listening to my body. That's discipline, right? Especially for movers. And yeah, so I just wanted to read that out, see if you have any response to it. And I think you've already said this, but if you want to say any more about how Pilates, gyrotonic, your movement journey has been part of your current treatment, I'd love you to speak to those. They're kind of one and the same, but anything that brings up.
Thank you for reminding of that quote. It is really beautiful that all of that came out before all going through all this, and how pertinent it is. It's so mind-blowing, actually. Another one of the gifts of going through this journey is, yeah, just a reset of my love of movement, but a reset like a spiral, like we know with gyro, it's a spiral is ever upward, and you're never coming back. You come back continuously, but never exactly the same way. To experience this reset of my love of movement, and but to be feeling like there's a freshness that I can kind of re-establish or establish a new relationship with it is such a gift. And honestly, like 6 months ago, I really believed I really had lost hope, and I believed that I wouldn't be able to teach again, and that I was, I was in a place of complete unknown, which unknownness has its value as well, but I had a lot of fear, and to be so, like, just the simplest of movements, walking, our beloved arch and curl, like, it just instills such a gratitude, and I'm just so grateful, grateful for every step. And to be able to navigate through this part, like a feeling, because this part feels like this, and every day there's a little bit of progress. So that in and of itself is super exciting. But to be going through this process with 30 years of experience as a mover and a movement educator behind me, it's really fascinating, so I think that's kind of all I have. I could wax poetic about, gyrotonic and Pilates. Honestly, there's a pocket where I was very strongly drawn to the spring resistance for what I'm going through. So Pilates has been a really big part of this process as well. But I kind of without question, gyrotonic is a huge aspect. And what's also beautiful is like I said, with the background, but a lot of my background is in the educational aspect, where it's syllabus based, right? We have curriculum that we get through in a foundation course, for example, and so to be able, like I said, to sit on a tower or sit on a bench and just kind of take a moment to quietly listen to my body and what does it need right now, and be able to have the expertise and the experience to listen, and then and also the apparatus, right, to be able to devise something to move the way that I'm intuiting my body needs. It's, like I said, it's just fascinating, and because it's like this, because it's on an upward curve, it's very fulfilling. I think we all know this, but I'll just say it again. Our system of movement is just such a gift, and it's so brilliant. And, you know, in the long run, I'll be very happy if what I'm experiencing right now is something that I'll be able to translate into some kind of offering out into the world. And maybe it will, maybe it won't, but you know, our work, the work that we do is beautiful and brilliant.
I'm going to end with that, Chantal, because that was beautiful. And you are already offering with your experience this work in a way that's so positive for our community. So I want to thank you for that. And the last thing I'm going to say is, for those of you who don't know what gyrotonic is, this is the tower she's talking about. There's many different towers, and sitting on this bench, I think for many of us just brings us back home to our bodies. So, and the foundation she's talking about is the teacher training for gyrotonic level 1. So just a few definitions there, but Chantal, thank you. I can't believe it's been an hour. I could keep talking for another hour. But I will wrap this up.
Keep talking, because others are probably getting bored.
No, thank you guys for watching. I'll have more information in the description. What was that?
I want to acknowledge also anybody who listened this long. Thanks for listening. It's really an honor to chat with you, Justine, and what you, by the way, thank you for your incredible, brilliant generosity, creating this kind of content for out into the gyrotonic community and into the world. You are such a force and such a goddess, you know, for good in this world. And it's just such a, yeah, I'm so honored to be, you know, your friend. And I just want to acknowledge, like, what you do is so amazing.
Thank you. Received. Tears. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I'll see you all soon on the Gyro Journey. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.